and welcome. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes for a couple more people to join. Most of the people on the call I know, but for those of you that don't, my name is Katie Williams, and I am a floral designer and a garden designer, and I have a home-based business in Dallas, Pennsylvania. And I also teach on the Studio B platform. It's a mindfulness platform. And they do focus on corporate clients, but we also have a virtual platform with teachers from around the world. Studio B helps kind of create community within corporate organizations and help people manage stress and optimize their mental health. So they are the ones that are hosting the event tonight, along with the Westmoreland Club. And I know the Westmoreland Club for me has been a place where most of the most memorable nights of my life, from my wedding and lots of celebrations, they all have been at the Westmoreland Club. So it's really nice to be part of this community. So we are going to be designing a garden style arrangement today, and I'll kind of take you through that process. And at any point, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself, or you can also use the chat feature. I'll, as best I can, keep on going back and forth and checking the chat if you have any questions. So when designing an arrangement, the first thing that I think about is the style of arrangement, and also where I'm going to be putting the arrangement, whether it's going to be on a kitchen table, an entry table, and that'll really help determine the size and scale of the arrangement. So a lot of the work today from picking out the color palette and the flowers, I've already have done for you, but I'll go ahead and kind of walk you through that process of how I go about picking out the color palette and take you step by step, kind of layering in the foliage and the different blooms to create a really lush garden style arrangement. So to get started, I'm just going to go through and tell you the names of the flowers that we'll be using in the design today. And this is what we all hope our arrangement will look like by the end. This is the one that I did earlier today. So, and I'll just point out each of the different flowers. This is my favorite flower in the arrangement, so I'll start there. This is an anemone. And then we have the purple and burgundy two-tone colored sweet pea. We have ranunculus, and everyone got the same recipe of flowers, but with the ranunculus, some of the colors are a little bit different. So it'll either be white or kind of variegated pink and white. You might even have some coral color ranunculuses in your in the flowers you received. And then this is scabiosa, the dark burgundy, lisianthus. So these little tiny lime green flower buds, as well as the apricot frilly leaf flower here. Let's see what else. And I think those are, oh, and then of course roses. We have two different types of roses. We have Garden Spirit. And this, both of them are a garden style rose, and they'll open so you can fully see the center. So So a lot of times when you have roses that you would buy just at the local store, they don't fully open to see the center of the rose. So these are really great because they'll fully open. All right, and then I'm going to go through and introduce all the different foliage, and then we'll get started on designing. And when you're looking to create a garden style arrangement, one of the key elements of a garden style arrangement is to incorporate at least a minimum of 3 different types of foliages. So you can easily in the summer in your own yard, you could forage for foliage or just buy a few different types of foliage. So we'll be using kind of plumosa fern, and this will kind of add some movement. And with a garden style arrangement, you want the vase and the flowers to be really lush and overflowing. So we're going to try to create a cascade over the edge of the vase with the different types of foliages. We'll also be using eucalyptus, and this is a seeded eucalyptus with a really unique cup-shaped green pods. We'll use silver dollar eucalyptus. This one, the burgundy color feathery foliage is called agonis. And that again kind of creates a lot of movement within the vase. And the last one is luperum. Actually, there is a tiny flower on here, this lime green, but we're going to use this at the very end to kind of fill in any spaces that need to be filled in once we're done with all of the different flowers. So, and then you are probably wondering why there's chicken wire inside of your vase. So there's different mechanics that you could use in order to kind of give the vase a little bit more stability. So oftentimes, and in the past, people used floral foam, and floral foam is really toxic to the environment, and it puts microplastics into the water supply, and it also has like carcinogenic properties. So I try not to use it, and I'd encourage you not to use it. So another alternative is a flower frog. I don't know if any of you have seen this, but this is something that you would put in the base of the vase, and it has sharp pins that are facing upward, and then you would use this to actually insert the stem into, and then it would stay in place. So today we are going to be using chicken wire inside of the vase, and this will kind of just create a grid inside the vase so your flowers will stay upright as we're designing. And another technique that a lot of people use is they'll use like a clear floral tape and create a grid on the top. But this is my favorite way to design. So everyone should have a flat piece of chicken wire. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a tube with the chicken wire. So you're going to have one, everyone has an edge that has the straight edge all the way down. So if you hold it this way, you're just going to create a tube, and then you're going to use the ends on the opposite end to connect the two sides. So if you just go through and connect those, and it really doesn't need to be pretty at all. We're kind of gonna shove it down into the vase. So everyone should be at the point where they kind of have a round tube. So, and the next step is going to be, we're gonna just fold in both ends to make it a little bit smaller to fit into the vase. And I really like this green coated chicken wire. It's much more pliable than the regular metal chicken wire, and it's not as sharp. So it's a lot easier to work with. And this is something that you can get at any of the box stores, and you would find it with the fencing supplies. So at this point, I kind of have an egg-shaped ball of chicken wire, and we're going to put it in so the sides that we folded in are both going to go in on the sides of the vase. And then you're just going to put it inside of the vase so the top part of the chicken wire is flush with the vase. So that's where we're at. And then the next step is to add water into your vase. And we're just gonna fill it up about 3/4 of the way. So do we have any questions at this point? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question, or you can also ask a question in the chat feature. And then I'm going to, the next step will be to start adding in the different types of foliage. And I'm going to start by adding in the plumosa fern. And when you're designing, you always want to make sure that all of the leaves, both on the foliage and on the flowers, do not go below the water line. So if there's leaves below the water line, it could cause bacteria in your vase. So we're going to start with the plumosa fern, and I'm going to be using my floral knife, but you can also use any type of sharp scissor or floral pruners as well. And I'm going to have it cascading over the side. And every stem that we're going to be adding in, we should be not going straight up and down. You're going to want to add the stems from the side and have the end of the stem reach the opposite side of the vase. So I'm going to evenly place the plumosa fern around the vase. And before we add in any of the flowers, we're going to make sure all of the chicken wire is covered with foliage. So, and the next I'm going to add in the agonis foliage. And again, I'm just going to remove the bottom leaves that would be in the water. And so I'm going to be making this arrangement around 1.5 to 2 times wider than the vase. I'm just going to tilt my camera down so you can see the vase a little bit better. And again, I'm going to evenly space the agonis around the outer edge of the vase. And the seeded eucalyptus, I'm going to put aside, and I'm going to add that at the end as kind of a finishing touch. But the silver dollar eucalyptus, I'm going to add that in now. And you can it does not need to be symmetrical. So you can have the length of your foliage at different lengths to kind of create a more natural looking design. You can even have some of the pieces even come upright as well. So while you guys are all finishing adding the foliage into your vase, I'll just talk a little bit about the colors and the color palette that I chose to use today and kind of how I normally go about choosing the color palette for a design. So typically when you're thinking of creating a design, you always want to bridge colors. So at the most basic level, if you think of white and red, those two colors are really contrasting and would look much better if you bridge the white and red with a pink flower. So whenever I am picking out flowers, I always try to kind of stay within a similar color palette, but I also have flowers that bridge flowers together. So the deep burgundy of the scabiosa, I have the same burgundy in the sweet pea, and then kind of the dark center of the anemone. And the peach flowers, you can also pick up the same peach color in the lisianthus and the ranunculus. And then most of the ranunculus that I picked out today all has a variegated burgundy edge to it. So really, if you have one off color in an arrangement, it really could be distracting to the eye. So if I have, and oftentimes I'll order things and they arrive in the morning and I realize that the color isn't the right color for the arrangement. And I would rather leave it out than add something that doesn't work. So at this point, everyone should have their foliage, and I can see some of the people that are designing, and don't be afraid to really shorten a stem. So if you have kind of long stems, don't be afraid to take 6 inches off of the bottom of the stem. So you want to create the vase and kind of determine what the final size is that you want. All right. So, and then the next flower I'm going to add are the roses. And when I'm deciding what flowers to add, typically the flowers with the stiffest, like hardiest stems are what I will add first, versus something like a sweet pea that has a really delicate fine stem, because what will happen is as you're adding in the stems, they can get broken. So I always try to add in the flowers that have the sturdiest stems. And these I am going to, again, remove the foliage that would be below the water line. And you want to cut the stem at a 45-degree angle. So when you cut the stem at a 45-degree angle, it increases the surface area of the stem to uptake the most water. So, and then also the stem won't sit at the bottom of the vase if you have it at an angle. If it is straight up and down, sometimes it could hit the bottom of the vase and not be able to uptake water. So all of the flowers, as I'm designing today, I'm going to use a 45-degree angle on the cuts. And I'm going to keep the roses low. And one of the other reasons that I'm adding the roses first is kind of the bigger, heavier flowers as far as the head size. You want them at the base of your arrangement. And I'm going to vary the heights of the roses. So some of them I'm going to leave a little bit longer than the others. And right now I'm adding the pink larger size rose. So you should have 3 of the pink and then 3 of the peach colored rose. And in order to kind of keep that arrangement looking really natural in a garden style arrangement, you want to keep on varying the heights and to create movement within the vase. So the majority of roses that are sold in the United States are imported out of South America. Some of the roses in season are grown in California, but the majority of the roses sold in the US are coming from South America. So I have all 6 roses in my vase and kind of varying the heights. And again, as I put each rose in, I was putting it into the vase at an angle. So you don't want to put it straight up and down. Just trying to look at everyone's vases to see if I should move on, to see if you are ready to keep on going. So the next flower I'm going to be using are the lisianthus. And the lisianthus I really like to use in arrangements because they're a really long lasting flower. And I also really like how you can have a fully opened flower as well as a flower that's still in the bud stage on each stem. So if it's a multi-stem, so we're going to divide these so they're each individual stems and use them individually in the vase. And I'm going to use the buds of the lisianthus kind of a little bit higher in the arrangement, whereas the flowers, I'm going to fill in the spaces around the rim of the vase. Let's see, in between the roses.
Katie, I have a question. So for these, should we like cut here and separate it?
So wherever there is a break, really you should be cutting the stem shorter just for the size and scale of the arrangement. But okay, you can divide. So here's one, and it is a single stem that branches. So I would kind of make this into 2 single stems.
Okay, so then they're not too short. I was thinking it could be too short, but that's not, that's okay.
Well, from my angle, I don't think it'll be too short. I think it'll be okay.
No, that's good. Okay, thank you.
So you don't need to separate them all. So right now, as I'm putting the lisianthus into the vase, I would say that I'm cutting the stems down to about 10 inches to give you like a reference of scale is the length of the stem that I'm using.
Okay, thank you.
And don't feel that you have to use all of the flowers here or all of the foliage, especially the foliage. You probably could have some extra. So I've kind of went around and filled in along the edges with the lisianthus, and now I'll put a few pieces a little bit more upright in the center. And the general scale to think about when designing is you want your flowers to be a minimum of 1.5 times the width and height of your vase. So of course, if you're it really depends on where you're placing the arrangement. If it's on a dinner table, you would want to keep the arrangement really low. And then it would be best if you chose like a bowl and use the chicken wire in it. But you want the flowers to be kind of lush and overflowing. So I always kind of gear towards 1.5 to 2 times the size of the vase, both in the height and the width. So I'm going to add a few more stems in. And the next flower I'm going to add in are the ranunculus, or actually the anemones I'm going to add in. So both the anemone and the ranunculus are both in the Ranunculaceae family, and they're both grown by little corm. It almost looks like little claws. So this is something that you would plant before your last frost. So as soon as you're able to like work the ground, you could plant anemones and ranunculus in your garden. They are not hardy to our area, so you can't, they're not a perennial that'll come back, but you can plant those and they're a great addition to a garden, or you can often find them at a garden center as well. So the anemones are really, I feel like, the focal flower of this arrangement. They're also known as a wind flower. So when you're thinking about how you're going to be placing these, kind of think about them kind of like dancing and moving in the wind in the arrangement. So I'm going to have them float above a little bit higher than the rest. And again, I'm going to stagger the height. So, and this is what you would call a face flower. So anything that has a center would be considered a face flower. And I always love face flowers. I always feel like they're kind of smiling at you. Most of the designs that I do always incorporate a face flower in them. So I'm going to add in all of my anemones now. I spin it around. And so I'm going to have kind of 2 facing one direction and 2 facing the opposite direction. So if you spin your vase, you can, and I'm going to do one a little bit taller, one a little bit shorter. And then next I'm going to add in the ranunculus, and both the ranunculus and the anemone are what you would consider a cool crop or a cool flower. They are one of the first flowers to flower in spring. And as soon as the weather gets warm, they kind of fizzle out and don't flower. So I'm going to place the ranunculus, again, kind of 2 on one side of the arrangement, spin it around, and 2 on the other side. And I'm going to vary the height as well. So one of the other things that I often think about when selecting flowers for a design is I like to have in my arrangement what is kind of blooming naturally outside together. So both ranunculus and anemones flower together in the garden, and so do sweet peas. They're one of the earlier flowering. So it would kind of be out of season to ever incorporate something like a sunflower, even if the color palette you chose was a yellow color palette, to put a sunflower in a spring arrangement. So if you really look outside to the season, it'll really give you an indication of different flowers that go together and will work well together in an arrangement. All right. How's everyone doing? Any questions at this point? Okay. And I actually just realized that I forgot to tell you to add in the floral packet. So the best way to do it at this point would probably to mix it with a little bit of water and then just pour it in. So, and the reason that I forgot about the floral packet is because I don't have one on my desk to show you. I don't have one next to me. So it's a powder that will prolong the base life. It prevents bacteria as well as provides some flower food for the flowers. So the flowers continue to open. So at this point, I have everything in my arrangement besides the sweet peas and the scabiosa. So the scabiosa are really neat, and you would probably recognize these from a garden. Their scabiosa butterfly blue is one that's often grown locally and incorporated into perennial gardens. So this is a fully opened scabiosa. So this scabiosa is called scabiosa scoop. And as it opens, this is the same flower. So you'll see it open, and the burgundy will have little purple edges as the flower matures. So, and I'm going to add those in again, kind of a little bit higher, floating above the arrangement. And the scabiosa come from the distributor with a little plastic sleeve on them. You can take it off if you want. If it doesn't bother you, you could leave it on. So the reason it comes with that sleeve is the stem is really fine, and as the flower fully matures, the stem sometimes will flop. So It depends. Sometimes I take it off, sometimes I leave it on. But I'm going to put those kind of at opposite ends of the vase. So if you're designing a vase that is going to be on a table, you want to make sure that the arrangement has flowers from all of the different angles that it's being viewed. Whereas if you're designing an arrangement that's going to be on an entry table where the back of the arrangement is facing a wall, you would just have all of the flowers forward facing. And one other, for an arrangement for a centerpiece, when you're viewing the arrangement, you're viewing it sitting down, not from looking up over top of the arrangement. So no one's really looking down a bird's eye view of your arrangement. Often you're kind of sitting at the table looking at it from the side. So you really, and that's one of the reasons why when you're inserting all of the stems, you're putting them in at an angle. So if you kind of crouch down and look at your arrangement and spin it around, you want to make sure that your arrangement from whatever direction it's going to be viewed is kind of presenting itself the best. And the last thing I'm going to add are sweet peas. And I really think the sweet peas are like the magic of this arrangement and kind of what ties everything together. And sweet peas are a great flower to add to your garden. You could direct sow them or start them inside. And I'm gonna kind of add these in at an angle a little bit more towards the center of the arrangement. Some a little bit more out to the side so it's not quite as symmetrical. This one in the center. So any questions up to this point? Right. So all of the flowers are in, and the only thing that I have left is
Katie, what is this?
that's the blue perm. So that's what we're going to add in next. So, and we're going to divide this into shorter pieces. So this is the blue perm. And really, if you have any spaces in your arrangement that kind of have a hole that needs to get filled in, this is kind of a great little filler foliage just to add in, or you can have it cascade over the side of the arrangement to kind of break that edge between the edge of the vase and the flowers. And then the last thing is the seeded eucalyptus, and I'm gonna save that for last so that can cascade over the edge of your arrangement. And you might have, again, like a branching piece, and you can divide that into two pieces. And you're gonna strip off the lower leaves and Pick it up. Just add those in to add a little bit of texture. And if you, this is another thing, if you kind of have a space in the center of your arrangement that kind of have a hole in the center of arrangement, you can add in any of these kind of fillers in to cover that area. So I often get asked when I tell people that I'm working with Studio B what the connection is between gardening and floral design and mindfulness. But if you think about gardening or floral design as kind of a creative activity that kind of brings you into the present moment, and that hand-brain connection where you're being creative, it kind of stops your mind from racing and kind of brings you down to what you're doing and just focusing on kind of the beauty of the flowers. And even with gardening, it really is something where you kind of get to create your own reality of whatever you want to design. So you can use your garden to kind of transport you to a different space by using kind of tropical flowers by your pool, can kind of take you to the tropics, or kind of use native flowers just to bring you and connect you more with the seasons. So I hope everyone enjoyed the class, and I hope everyone's arrangements are looking great. Oh, it looks awesome.
Yeah, look good. Oh, I said ours is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
And if anyone is interested, there is a 14-day free trial on the Studio B platform. So we can send you the link. And so not only does Studio B work with corporate clients, but there is a consumer platform where there is everything from gardening and floral design, yoga, meditation, and they talk about just different ways to manage stress. There's also an 8-week signature series that'll be launching in March. I'm actually going to be taking it myself, and it is something that normally they use for corporate clients, but now is going to be available for everyone. So that's something really exciting to look forward to. So any other questions, or anyone want to show off their arrangement? Everyone that I can see, they all look really great. Yeah, they really look great.
Ours turned out great.
All right, good.
How hard is it to work with the chicken wire? Like, do you have to get a big sheet of it and cut it into little sheets like you did?
Yes, so it comes in a large roll. It's probably like 36 inches in length, and then it's just in a roll. So
Okay.
I kind of just measure out how much I'll need for the vase. And you want to create kind of that round form. So when the stem goes in, it's hitting the grid both on the top and then also when it goes on the bottom. So
Great.
That'll be the most stability. But yeah, it comes in a large roll, and I'll cut it and kind of cut bigger than I think that I need. And if it's it's really easy to work with, especially the green coated chicken wire. So I'll just, if I cut it too big, just kind of go back and reform it. So
That's
but
a
it's
neat tip. I didn't know because I'm so used to that old fashioned foam.
yeah. So I actually used to work with the floral foam a little bit until I knew how bad it was for their environment and for my health. Now I'm a little phobic of it. I really don't like to work with it at all. But there's a big movement within the floral design industry to kind of move towards sustainability. And one of the biggest things that people talk about is moving away from floral foam and using different alternatives like the chicken wire.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had no idea. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
We love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. You can always email me. My email was on the card that was delivered in your box. If you have any questions about Studio B, you can find them both on Facebook, and they have a great website that really tells everything about all the different services that they offer. So, all right, well, it was great being with everyone. Thank you again to the Westmoreland Club. Thank you everyone for joining. And I'm going to sign off.
Okay, thank you. We had a great
Thanks.
time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.